members sitting in the lobby. All right, then can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can everyone not only see me, but also the cover slide?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right. So then with that, good afternoon officially here. I'd like to call to order and welcome everyone to this regular meeting of the LOSSAN Rail Corridor Agency Technical Advisory Committee being held virtually on Thursday, November 4th, 2021. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that due to every TAC member participating by Zoom actually today, a roll call vote will be required for attendance and for agenda items that require action by the TAC. Also for the TAC members and staff participating via Zoom, please remember to mute your phone unless you're speaking. All TAC members should state for the record your name and agency, please. For all LOSSAN staff who are presenting, please state for the record your name and job title. Members of the public will be granted permission to speak during appropriate public comment opportunities on the agenda. And so with that, at this time, I'd like to call roll, and we'll start at the north end of the corridor there. Do we have SlowCog? Anyone from SlowCog? Do we have SPCAG, Scott Spalding?
Yeah, Scott's on.
Okay. We have Lauren Bianchi-Clement. VCTC, Claire Grasty. Martin Erickson. LA Metro, Jay Furman.
Yes, present. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Jeanette Owens. OCTA, Megan Taylor.
I'm here. Hello.
Hello. And Alexis Murillo Felix.
Present, thank you.
RCTC, Sheldon Peterson. Okay. NCTD, do we have Graham Blackwell? Do we have Robert Calix?
Yes, you have Robert Calix, Chief of Planning.
Thank you, Robert. Sandag, do we have Danny Bay?
Yes, good afternoon. Danny Vase here.
All right, Danny. MTS, do we have Brent Boyd?
Yep, I'm here.
Hey, Brent. And do we have Julia Tour? All right. For SCAG, do we have Stephen Fox? For Metrolink, do we have Roderick Diaz? High Speed Rail, do we have Mark Chang? Jerry Romana?
I'm here, James.
Hey, Jerry. Amtrak, do we have Timothy Devine? BNSF, do we have Tamara Noel?
Hi, good afternoon, James. This is Cindy Stone. Tamara will be joining. She may be a few minutes late, though.
Okay. Union Pacific, do we have Peggy Harris?
Yes, present.
Okay. And do we have Victor Stone? Caltrans, do we have Ryan Greenway? Oh, he is on. I see he's joined a little late. Here we go. And so did Vic. All right, so I'll ask again for UP, is Victor Stone here? I think I saw him. In Caltrans, do we have Ryan Greenway?
Yeah, sorry, I'm here.
Hey, Ryan. Or Anthony Cerna? All right. And I see Metrolink is just joining us as well. think. And then, so I'll ask, do we have anyone from Metrolink? All right, well, that takes us to our item number 1, public comments. We can move to the next slide, please. Michelle, are there any public comments that have been received?
There are no public comments.
Do you have to, I think we have to do a speech.
Yes, let me do the first speech. Okay. At this time, members of the public may address the committee members regarding any items with the subject matter jurisdiction of the Technical Advisory Committee, but no action may be taken on or off agenda items unless authorized by law. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. To comment in real time, select the raise hand button to speak. You can find the raise hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you are calling by phone, press *9 to raise your hand and press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. You may only speak once on each agenda item unless the committee decides to take additional comment. I will unmute callers who wish to speak one at a time.
We have anyone who wishes to speak? Okay,
No comments.
thank you. All right, I apologize ahead of time for if we have some glitches here. This is the first time actually using the live participation in Zoom, so we may have some technical difficulties on occasion here. Okay, so that takes us to special calendar where there are no special calendar items actually. So we'll move on to our consent calendar items 2 through 4. We have the next slide there, John. And then all matters on the consent calendar, again, items 2 through 4, are to be approved in one motion unless a committee member or member of the public requests separate action for this item. Do I have any requests from the TAC members to pull an item from the consent calendar for questions or comments?
James, this is Scott. I have a real minor question on number 3, and I'll probably want to pull 4 because I have a couple questions on the ABP.
All right, so I'll pull 4 and 3 there, just so we can ask the questions there. Michelle, do we have any requests from the public on the consent calendar before we, make a motion on the remaining item and then open up discussion on 3 and 4?
To comment in real time, select raise hand to speak. If you are calling by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. I don't see any comments, James.
All right, so at this time, for item number 2 of the consent calendar, do I have a motion and second to approve this item before moving on to discussions on item 3 and 4?
Yeah, Danny Vay with Sandag. I can make a motion to approve consent item number 2.
Okay. Got Danny, and who will second?
Jay Furman, LA Metro.
Okay. Thank you. Because we are remote, this will require a roll call vote. So this will only be for the voting members. So I'll be going by agency and primary member there. And so starting with SBK, Scott Spalding,
Aye.
LA Metro, Jay Furman,
Aye.
OCTA, Megan Taylor,
Yes.
NCTD, Robert Calix,
Aye.
Sandag, Danny Vay,
Yes.
MTS, Brent Boyd.
Yes.
And just to verify, did VCTC or RCTC join? Okay. Item number 2 passes. With that, Scott, you want to ask your question on item number 3?
Yeah, number 3, real simple. I noticed that there was a fare box in there for the quarter of 50-something%. And I was just wondering whether that was generated, that fare box figure is generated by the state or if that's generated by LOSSAN.
Hey, Scott, this is Roger. That is actually from, and I would turn on my camera, but it seems to not let me. That is actually generated by the state. Caltrans reports to the CTC quarterly. And as part of that, they include a quarterly and yearly fare box recovery, kind of a rolling 12-month and a quarterly representation. So that's actually generated by Caltrans.
So do they get the figures from LOSSAN and from the other 2 corridors to generate that figure?
They get those directly from Amtrak to generate those figures. Yeah.
Okay, so there's no I guess I'm wondering just in general, just sort of, best practice. I guess Caltrans must include, there's non-Amtrak costs, which I'm assuming they know as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a clear picture of the costs and revenues, because there's also, there's extra revenue in addition to just ticket revenue. So they have a full picture of the costs and revenues.
Okay, that's it for 3.
Right. And then your comment from item number 4?
So on the ABP, I noticed that I have a couple of questions on this. One was, if I read this right, there was an assumption, this is for 22-23 and 23-24, right? It's a 2-year business plan.
Yes, that is correct.
And I noticed that, I think I read that there was, the operating assumption was that there would be 10 trips. I think that's 10 round trips.
Yes.
So in the past, we don't have 10 trips in the north. So in the past, the service levels have been broken down north and south of LA. I think that would be good to include in the business plan, X number of trips in the south and X number of trips in the north.
Yeah, and we do that in the business plan. We absolutely do. All those details are spelled out. Are you just wanting that to be specified in the board item?
Yeah, I think so, because for us in the north, we would see 10, and there may be some misunderstanding or confusion on that.
Okay.
So I think it'd be good to specify what the service levels are.
So the 10, 4, and 2, or that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely make that adjustment.
And then I think I also noticed that there was the assumption of those service levels, which I think are existing right now after the October service change.
Yes.
That there would be a return to pre-COVID service levels, which for North is 5 and 2 in 2023 or fiscal 22-23. Is that right?
The goal would be to return to, dependent on contingent on equipment availability, to pre-pandemic service levels in 23-24. So back up, yeah. Okay. So back up to the 13.52 or whatever there was previously.
So that would be, the earliest would be July of 2023.
And that is just everything at this point, and which is what we keep kind of calling attention to, is everything is contingent on equipment. If we can get equipment sooner, then absolutely we will do whatever we can to try to implement additional service sooner. But at this point, we just have to plan, hopefully, for at least the foreseeable future, we have what we have. But then by 23-24, we'll have sufficient equipment to return to pre-pandemic. But if we get it sooner, then obviously we'll put forth every effort to get it implemented sooner.
So it sounds like there's confidence, and I'm aware that the service expansion is based on equipment. It sounds like there's confidence that there will be equipment available by at least July of 2023, and maybe sooner, but there's confidence that it would be at the latest available then.
Yeah, I think in general that we've got enough irons in the fire on the equipment front that we're hoping by, we're fairly confident by then we'll have enough equipment to run our pre-pandemic service. And, that I'm sure as we continue on here in the next few months, we'll be getting additional details on our, our equipment options that are developing. But at this point, we're fairly confident by 23, we should have the equipment that is needed to run our pre-pandemic service.
And that relates to another question I had in general, which we've talked about in the past is, I think member agencies, at least the ones that the member agencies that I talk to don't at this point have a clear picture of what the equipment plans and planning is. And I think, there's going to be some presentations in the future, but I would say that those I would recommend, and I don't know how other member agencies feel, but I think the sooner the better in terms of, I realize that there's no decisions that have been made at this point, but it would be good for member agencies to know what the planning is at this point, what the options are, what's being pursued, what isn't, that kind of thing. So I would just provide that comment.
I'm going to
correct me if didn't you do that, James?
Quick, Roger.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct, Scott, in that there will be presentations made when we actually have information to present as far as kind of a plan, even a recommended plan in place. This is not limited to just the LOSSAN corridor or the Pacific Surfliner. This is a statewide issue, in general, that is being looked at holistically from a statewide perspective. So there are discussions ongoing of what a near-term, midterm, and long-term solution might be for the state as far as equipment goes, that involves Capital Corridor, San Joaquin's, ourselves, Caltrans, and to a large extent CalSTA. The immediate concern right now is what can we do in the short term to try to get additional equipment, as Roger was mentioning, to at least get to our pre-COVID service. Because while equipment is the primary concern, there's also crewing issues as well, because with the pandemic, Amtrak found themselves with fewer crews to come back after a lot of furloughs with the reduced services. Others found jobs elsewhere. So it's a matter of equipment as well as crews going forward. But once we actually have information that we can present and a plan we want to get input on, we will certainly be bringing it back to the TAC and likely the board as well.
So if there's certainty about having equipment at the latest in July of 2023, what is that? What is that certainty?
There are opportunities we are trying to evaluate at this point that could have us buying used equipment, at least a limited amount of used equipment, to at least try and get us to the pre-COVID service levels. But this is by no means certain at this time. It would be from a private entity, not from Amtrak there. But until we have some more certainty in there, that is why it hasn't been brought to the TAC or the board as part of the committees or board meetings.
Well, I know the general state's plan is they're buying a whole bunch of single level that's going to be put on the San Joaquin, and then some of the bi-level rotated down. Is that going to be part of the update, in the next 1, 2, 3 months to the TAC and the board?
As soon as we actually get moving on the venture cars and know how many bi-levels we may actually get, then yes. Right now, the time frame on the venture cars is also unknown. There's a lot of issues that are surrounding the kind of acceptance of those cars that we're working through with the manufacturer. So until those are addressed, we don't know exactly when those will go into service. And even once they do go into service, until they're satisfied as far as the reliability and effectiveness of the cars, rightfully so, San Joaquin's or Capital Corridor are not going to release additional bi-levels to be transferred down to Southern California.
Are the venture cars, are those the existing bi-level that they have up there?
No, the venture cars are the new single level cars that we're waiting to get into service.
Oh, that's the Siemens car, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. I think that's all my questions for number 4.
All right.
Hey, James,
go ahead, Jay.
Jay Furman has a question, if I may.
Yeah.
Possibly for Roger. I'm just trying to get my hands around the fiscal years here. the item talks about the business plan for years 23 and 24, but then the summary at the bottom, it says FY 22 and 23. So I'm trying to understand.
Typo.
Oh, okay.
That was a typo, Jay. Sorry about that.
Got it. Okay. That explains it. Thank you.
I love the easy answers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions?
Yeah, James, this is Danny at Sandag. Just kind of building off of, the discussion you were just having. I think I think a lot of us have similar questions on the equipment. We know it's a, the major factor for increasing service. I'll just make a request to have continual updates to the TAC on equipment, on future agenda items.
All right. All right, if there's no other questions, would someone like to make a motion to move and approve items 3 and 4 of the consent calendar?
This is Scott. I'll make a motion with that one modification to the AVP about the trips north and south of LA for 3 and 4.
All right.
This is Megan. I'll second.
All right. So then this again will be a roll call vote to approve items 3 and 4 of the consent calendar. So SBK, Scott Spalding.
Yes.
Jay Furman, LA Metro.
Yes.
Megan Taylor.
Yes.
Robert Calix.
Yes.
Danny Bay.
Yes.
Brent Boyd.
Yes.
Items 3 and 4 pass. All right, that takes us now to the regular calendar and item number 5, proposed 2022 Board of Directors and Committee Meetings schedule. John, if we have the next slide, please. In your packet should be the proposed schedule for 2022 board and committee meetings. Now, this draft calendar does propose monthly regular board meetings. Board meetings are proposed to be held the third Monday of the month, except for the months of January, February, November, and December due to federal holidays or schedule conflicts. Executive committee and TAC meetings are proposed to be held the first Thursday during the months in which a regular board meeting is held. And meetings can also be added or canceled by the board chair throughout the year as desired and appropriate. TAC meetings may also be canceled some months if insufficient technical material is available to present or discuss. The draft calendar was presented to the executive committee this morning, and LOSSAN staff are seeking additional input from the TAC here on the proposed 2022 board and committee meeting calendar, and a recommendation that the calendar be submitted to the board of directors for consideration and approval. Are there any questions or comments from TAC members on this item?
Yeah, James, this is Scott. Was there any discussion at the executive committee about trying to have some of the meetings in LA to make it easier for North to travel?
Not at this time. No, there was no actual discussion at the executive committee on location of board meetings, just on dates.
I would like to, throw out there that I think in the past we've had at least some meetings in LA. I think that makes travel certainly easier for those of us in the North. I think it makes sense to at least have that. So I'd like to see if there's anyone else that's interested in that as well.
Yeah, this is Danny at Sandag. I also agree with that. I think there's a lot of value in having in-person meetings, not just for, personal interactions at the board, but also it gives a chance for our board members to ride the train and experience the service firsthand. And I think that provides a lot of value. So I would really urge to schedule some meetings in LA for, and previously we've, when, this is pre-COVID, but we'd have one of our meetings up in Lausanne North and one of our meetings in Lausanne South, and the rest of them were basically all in LA. So I would encourage that as an opportunity also to kind of showcase other parts of the corridor. And then I'd also urge to have some in-person TAC meetings as well.
Yeah, I think at least into 2022 there, that the likelihood of returning to at least some, if not all, in-person meetings is fairly likely, particularly as we get into the year. So I think that definitely will be something that will be considered throughout the year. But I will take down the comments, present them to our clerk of the board as for consideration and presentation to the board meeting or to the board of directors.
James, this is Scott. I'll also note that Ventura and Slow are not on the call, but I have talked to them about, having some meetings in LA. So I can't speak for him, but I think that there's probably some support there from them.
Understood. All right, Michelle, first I'll ask, are there any other comments on the schedule from TAC members?
James, Jay would just like to make a comment. First of all, we support having as many meetings as possible in LA. And as far as the November board meeting, is that planned to be virtual, or I'm just curious at what point we might see the board go back to in person?
The November board meeting is planned to be virtual. The first potential in-person one could be one of the first ones in 2022. And again, that'll be dependent on the final calendar that is approved by the board of directors, taking into comments from the TAC here, and just the nature of how things go through December there as it relates to opening things back up and having in-person meetings again.
Hey, James, this is Scott. I'll condition my comments on LA providing a good lunch if we're going to meet in LA. Jay?
We'll do what we can. We just opened a new microbrewery at Union Station, and I would love to have in person and try to cater some nice lunch. So we'll do our best. But first, we got to get back to in person.
Right. Okay, if there's additional comments, Michelle, do we have any requests from the public on this item?
Comment in real time, select raise hand to speak. If you are calling by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. No comments. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Since this is a regular calendar item and does have a recommendation, I'd like to take a motion to actually recommend this be moved to the board, taking into account comments received here today.
This is Scott. I'll make a motion.
A second?
Danny Vay, second.
Danny? All right, that's a motion by Scott Spalding, second by Danny Vay. Take a roll call vote here. So SB Keg, Scott Spalding.
Yes.
LA Metro, Jay Furman.
Yes.
OCTA, Megan Taylor.
Yes.
NCTD, Robert Kalix.
Yes.
Sandag, Danny Vay.
Yes.
MTS, Brent Boyd.
Yes.
Recommendation passes there. So this moves us to our discussion items. And our first item is item number 6, the 2022 Transit Intercity Rail Capital Program Call for Projects. And this item will be presented to the TAC by Russ Henry.
Thank you, James. Good afternoon, members of the TAC. Russ Henry, Manager of Finance and Grants. And I just wanted to talk to you guys for a few minutes regarding the upcoming call for projects for the 2022 Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, or TIRCP, also known as TIRCIP. Information regarding a general background of TIRCIP and this call for projects is included in the staff report within your packet. So most of you are familiar with TIRCIP, but I'll give you a brief overview of LOSSAN's history with the program. So this will be the 5th cycle. The first 4 cycles were in 2015, 2016, 2018, and 2020. The LOSSAN agency was successful in obtaining funding for each of these cycles. In 2015, LOSSAN was awarded nearly $1.7 million for the transit transfer program, which included funding for transfers between the Surfliner and 12 transit operators to improve connecting bus ridership. In 2016 and 2018, LOSSAN was awarded a combined $270.3 million for a multitude of capital projects and on-time performance agreements throughout the corridor. In 2020, the most recent cycle, LOSSAN was awarded $38.7 million for layover facilities in San Luis Obispo and San Diego counties. So for this 5th cycle, the call for projects is expected to be released on November 19th, along final guidelines for the program. The draft guidelines were released in September and appear to be similar to 2020, aside from a few small modifications. With the release of the final guidelines, we expect an update of the total pool of funding available, but now we expect it to be in a range of $500 to $600 million for the 5-year program of projects. Applications for this round are going to be due a little bit later this time. They're going to be due March 3rd of 2022, with an award amount announcement expected in June of 2022. LOSSAN staff will be reaching out to the member agencies to coordinate plans for the cycle. So the plan is to have formal discussions with the agencies and collaborate. What we'd like to know is if individual agencies are planning on submitting an application so we can kind of get on the same page. As far as the current projects that we're looking at, that's still in the process of, developing a potential list. In this cycle, we'll be looking for shovel-ready projects with at least the minimum of having completed PSR. The one exception we're looking at, as everybody knows, bluff and slope stabilizations have been a hot topic lately. So we will be looking at the options to perhaps put together a corridor-wide project of some sort. What that looks like, we'll get back later to the TAC. So we will actively work with member agencies to see what that might look like and how it would fit within the program guidelines. So I would expect discussion with member agencies to occur in the coming weeks. Once we have a list of potential projects, we will return to the TAC and board. This will occur early next year. So that is an overview of the anticipated 2022 TIRCIP and what we are currently looking at moving forward with. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you, Russ. Are there any questions or comments from TAC members on this?
This is Scott. Thanks for that, Russ. I know we don't have a TAC meeting in December, and so I think we have one in January, although I'd have to look at the schedule. And I know you're going to have individual conversations, but it kind of sounds like by the time this gets back to the TAC, it'll be fully baked just because of the timing of that. Is there a sense of, LOSSAN drawing from the project list that we have in the can that we've worked from the past, or any other kind of thoughts or approach in general at this point?
I think we're still in the infancy stages of looking at that and what projects will be considered. I don't think there's anything off the table necessarily right now, but that is something we'll have discussions with the individual agencies, probably prior to the holiday season.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Yeah, this
Any
is
other-
yeah,
go
this is
ahead,
Danny at Sandag. Yeah, thanks for the update, and I think we definitely want to be in communication as we I think Sandag, I think, is still in this infancy stage of deciding which projects we'd like to pursue from the San Diego region. At least the Sandag, our rail projects that we have left to do are all pretty big ticket items. We've been successful in this program, funding some double track projects in the past, but you know, it's almost like the projects that we have left to do are kind of you know, too much to ask for the pot that's available at this time. So we're kind of debating on which particular projects to do. We're also coordinating with NCTD, and I'm sure we reach out with MTS pretty soon too to kind of do a joint regional thing. And so, yeah, I think from our perspective here at Sandag, we're definitely looking to coordinate and have a unified voice to the state once we submit this. So just look forward to continuing our communication.
Absolutely. Thank you, Danny. Appreciate that.
Any additional questions? All right, Michelle, do we have any requests from the public on this item?
To comment in real time, select raise hand to speak. If you are calling by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. No comments, James.
All right, thank you. That takes us to item number 7, update on the future of the rail-to-rail program. And this item will be presented to the TAC by Mr. Lopez.
Okay, let me just get my camera to actually work this time. Okay, there we go. Got it. So good afternoon, members of the TAC. Roger Lopez, LOSSAN's Administrative Officer. And I'm here to present to you a quick update on the rail-to-rail program, some details on the history of the program and where we are now, where we hope to go in the future. This presentation was primarily prepared as just a quick rundown of the program for some of our newer board members. A lot of them have not been around for much of the discussions, and we do have a fair amount of new people. So we'll move through it fairly briskly, as I think everyone here has been around for a good long while and is familiar with the program. So looking at our next slide, this is our recap of the program history in general. And the program began in 2003. And actually, it's the next slide, John. At that time, when the program was originally envisioned, Metrolink needed additional capacity. And of course, the Surfliner had it. So our ridership at that point was not where it was now. And we were able to provide more train options to Metrolink riders without Metrolink having to pay for the full cost of running additional trains. It helped the Pacific Surfliner out because it provided additional riders and revenue to the Surfs. And it, again, provided that additional flexibility to Metrolink. In general, the program has remained the same over the years. There have been some adjustments to the fare media that's been accepted, the reimbursement rate, the blackout days, just minor tweaks to the program. But in general, it's remained pretty much the same. We did have a recent modification. That was October 25th. And that modification included the addition of 2 more codeshare trains that will operate between LA and Oxnard. So as it currently stands, the program, the current agreement for the program ends June of 2022. So looking at our next slide, this is just kind of a recap of the more recent usage of the program. There has been some fluctuation on program usage over the years. We did an analysis at one point that kind of laid out increases in the rail-to-rail usage, usually traveled with the increases in the cost of gasoline. More people were using the trains as just a viable option. I think it just followed the trends of ridership. But generally speaking, over the years, even though we have had some variation, we usually maintained between about an 8 to 11% annually for the ridership component of it. So between 8 and 11%, usually right around 9 to 10 of our ridership was comprised of rail-to-rail passengers. The revenue was not quite that high. That usually hovered around 2%. And for the year prior to the pandemic, we were right at about 9% and just under 2% for the revenue. And the graph here just showing the variations, and you can really see that, Metrolink dropped right along with us as far as the ridership was concerned. So moving into our next slide, the program, has been discussed a number of times at the board over the years. The board has identified, a number of different elements that they want kind of addressed as the program moves forward. Things like, capacity management, revenue equity, overall cost to the member agencies. And one of the things that the board did push for staff to look into was some sort of a step-up program. And that was something that would allow a passenger on a by-use basis to pay a small fee for each trip that they use to use the program, whether it be on a Metrolink train or on a Pacific Surfliner train. So the goal of that in that direction was to provide the flexibility that the passengers wanted, but also to put the cost of that flexibility on the passenger. And that, of course, would take that cost off of the member agencies. Now, the issue with the Step Up program, it proved to be primarily technological. There were a lot of hurdles that came along with this type of per trip upgrade to travel on one or the other service. So that was just one of the things that we started to look at. Now, if we look into our next slide, over the last few years, but really in earnest over the last year, we've been working with our partners at Metrolink to develop a more long-term solution to the rail-to-rail program. And as I mentioned, it's kind of really kicked into high gear over the last 12 months or so. And primarily because we're approaching yet again the end of the existing agreement. So in those discussions, the things that we have established as a priority for both agencies, of course, is revenue equity. It has to be a very fair, a very transparent way of splitting the revenue based on the usage of the services. We're also looking at things like capacity management, because we know for anyone who's tried to take an evening train out of LA South, it can be standing room only for a good portion of that. So we're trying to mitigate that by, again, pushing some of the cost of that flexibility onto the passenger. And then the customer experience. Obviously, we want the program to be beneficial to the public. We want our riders to be able to have the flexibility that they need, but it has to be easy. It can't be a complicated process. It should be something that they can do in one step. And that's really our focus, is to try to make it as seamless as possible for the end user. So looking at our next slide, the focus has primarily been on the monthly passes as we look at a way to kind of integrate this program. Excuse me. Part of that is just has to kind of go back to the technological issues associated with the single rides and that step up program. The other being how close monthly passes are to each other in cost when you look at the overlapping territory between the Surf and the Metrolink. So with single rides, the cost differential is quite a bit, but on the monthly rides, it's only about 5%. You have Metrolink as the base, then you have us on average about a little over 5.3% above that. So we were kind of focusing in on that, because a monthly pass, those are the Metrolink and Surf users who are using that train every day. They're the people who they would benefit obviously the most from this type of flexibility. So looking on, we've looked at a number of different things, and we've talked back and forth, from normalizing the fares between the two to just expanding code share. It's a lot of different things that we're considering. But one of the things that we've looked at is the region pass, and it would essentially be kind of a new tier of pass that would be sold by either service, could be used by either service within the station fares, obviously, of your specific pass. The revenue distribution would be very transparent, very equitable. It would be based on the trips taken, and it would, again, accomplish the goals of capacity management. It would eliminate things like blackout days. It would be very easy for the customer to use because it would require no thought. They could purchase a monthly pass that was just a standard monthly pass, but if they knew based on their schedule, their need to take either or service, then they could, pay that. And I think on the average, it was only like a $30 per month increase above a standard pass. They would know that they would need that. They could buy that, and then no thought. Any train, whatever it is, whatever time they could get on it, they could take it. So that's just one of the things that we were considering. If we look to our next slide, we're meeting weekly at this point, not only with our partners at Metrolink, not only on the rail to rail, but we also are discussing some of the operational challenges that we're both experiencing right now, the ways that we can provide mutual aid to each other. We're looking into a lot of different options as far as rail to rail is concerned. Of course, we mentioned the region pass, but we're looking at integrated ticketing. We're looking at an expansion of the code share trains even further than that, maybe potentially moving them south. And we've already, as we mentioned, made some adjustments to the rail to rail to try to integrate them better, give people more options. We have of course, the new code share trains. And for the first time, the 4 code share trains operating between LA and Oxnard, those are 7 days a week now. And so it's trying to expand it, trying to add to the availability for our member agencies or our partners at Metrolink and our passengers. So finally, looking at our next slide, we're going to continue to work our way through the options. We're going to try to come up with a solution that, of course, benefits both agencies and continues to make it a positive experience for our passengers. And the hope is, as we work with our partners at Metrolink, to maybe return with an additional update sometime in the second quarter of next year. So we'll provide an update and maybe some more details on what we've been able to work out on the next iteration of the program. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Roger. Does anyone have any questions for Roger?
Roger, this is Scott. I wonder if you could just provide a little bit more detailed explanation of how the code share system works, I guess front end, back end, to the customer and on the back end.
To the customer, it's actually a very easy process. They buy a ticket and they get on the train. It's code shares. They accept all fare media from Metrolink. All valid fare media is accepted on those. They actually show up in the Metrolink schedule as an available train. And then they're reimbursed just like a normal rail-to-rail passenger. So the difference is they can essentially get on with any fare media, not just a monthly pass or whatever the case may be. And those trains stop at all stations. So, they stop at Northridge and what was the other one, James?
Burbank downtown.
Burbank downtown. So it's essentially just it functions for that strip as a Metrolink train.
Okay. Okay. So Surfliner is really unaffected. It's a Surfliner train, and a Metrolink like a Metrolink customer can just buy a Metrolink pass, let's say on their phone or at a TVM or something, and then it's read by the Surfliner validator.
Yeah, at this point, it's either, depending on the fare media, it's either scanned or it's entered in as a Metrolink rail-to-rail rider manually.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. There's a few hands up here. First, I did see Rosa. Did you actually have a question or comment?
No, if I did something, it was on accident. Sorry.
Okay, your hand was up, so I wasn't certain. Okay, no worries there. Megan, OCTA.
Yeah, hi James, this is Megan. I just wanted to say thank you to Roger and to Metrolink for, coming together on this and moving forward with some options. I love the idea of the region pass and expansion of the code share arrangement would be very exciting. So thank you. I just wanted to thank you.
Oh,
we're excited to be making progress too.
Yeah, definitely. Jay.
Sure. This seems like a really equally exciting concept, this region pass, and we're excited to see where it goes. I do have a question on the integration. Is it a pass that would be sold at the TVMs, or would it be like online mobile ticketing only? How would you physically get the pass?
Jay, it's very early. It's just one of the things that we've been discussed. But one of the things that the Surfliner is working towards is ticket integration. So we are hoping to have some meetings within it to potentially get on the same platform, because I think the key to this and to every other program, we're having similar discussions with our partners at NCTD. If we can get onto the same ticketing system, it would be a one-stop shop. You could buy your tickets in one app and it would cover everything. So it's just something that we're working towards. Hopefully, as we get a little further along in the next couple of months, we'll start to have some details on how that would practically be done, but it would just be another piece of fare media that could be sold via TVMs or an app or whatever. But like I said, it's just one of the options we're looking at, and it's kind of dependent on us being able to get integrated with everybody else as far as the ticketing apps are concerned. And that's really our goal. And I know that's the goal of the state of California too. So that's definitely something that we're trying to implement.
And another question on the fare, I think you mentioned 10% more or less increase for the Metrolink riders and 5% for Surfliner. Based on the revenue that it would generate, is it likely that it would reduce or eliminate the cost to the member agencies? In other words, would all of the costs be borne by the rider? Is that the goal?
Yeah, because essentially it would eliminate the cost of rail to rail. I mean, you would, the member agencies would still be responsible for the cost of the service, but you would no longer see a $2 million item for rail to rail, because it would be the passengers who need that flexibility paying for that pass, and then the revenue would just be distributed based on, on actual usage.
Okay, and then final question, I have a lot of interest in this item. You mentioned this is for the monthly pass. Have you been talking to Metrolink about one-ways and round trips, or do you ever see an opportunity to kind of try to address
and that's
that?
Definitely something that we've been talking to, and that was one of our recent discussions with Roderick, who's on today, was the potential for maybe expanding code share to the south, and or even potentially, providing, weekly or, and there's a lot of different things. I think the key is once the fares are, not the fare, but the ticket systems are integrated and we're able to sell on the same platform as everybody else, that opens up a lot of opportunities for other things besides just a monthly pass.
And just real quick to interject there with the previous comment, just to clarify, Jay, that the hope is we still need to work into the financial analysis to see how effective it would be. But the hope is that, yes, it would eliminate, if not significantly reduce, if not eliminate, that member agency subsidy of the $2 million that Roger mentioned. But there does need to be a financial analysis to make sure that it can be fully eliminated and not just partially.
Right. Well, we like the direction it's going.
Yeah.
One final comment. Just a reminder, as you continue to have your technical IT focused conversations or whatnot with Metrolink, to please remember to try to design a solution or whatever you do with this pass that allows people to get through the Metro gates. So we want to.
That's definitely on our wish list, Jay. We want to be able to scan.
We have it for the Metrolink riders currently, but our goal ultimately is to get the Amtrak riders as well seamlessly through our gates with whatever this new fare media product is. So thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, Danny.
Yeah, Roger, thanks for the update. Very informative. Can you just talk about the NCTD and Coaster Rail-to-Rail program, and if this has any impact to that, or if it's all still separate, or is this precedent setting for what's happening in San Diego or not?
Yeah, at this point, it's still separate, but the goal is, and I just spoke with Robert Calix yesterday, day before, and we were discussing this very same thing. The NCTD one is a little bit different because, the reimbursement rate is set by the CAFR. It's adjusted annually. The usage there, just because of the stopping pattern, it's not high. So we haven't given it a lot of discussion yet. But if we can do what we hope to do with regard to the ticketing integration, then that opens up a lot as far as the NCTD is concerned, especially. So it's definitely something I think this will probably inform what we come to a conclusion on with Metrolink, will help to kind of shape what we do with NCTD in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Are there any other questions from TAC members?
Oh, maybe just one final comment. Yeah, I as somebody that rides the Surfliner departing southbound at LA at rush hour, it is frustrating. When you buy
how to stand, right?
The Surfliner tickets, the premium, and you've got those daily Metrolink commuters on there. So I'm glad that there's progress there to help ensure some equity there.
All right, thank you.
So, yes, James, this is Robert Calix. Just want to echo, I guess, what most of the folks are saying. We like the direction that this is taking, and my conversations with Roger yesterday were, let's see what we need to do on our end to facilitate this process coming south. So we're excited about it, and we're looking forward to supporting this to move it forward. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And so I guess right now, Michelle, do we have any requests from the public on this item?
To comment in real time, select raise hand to speak. If you are calling by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. No comments, James.
All right. Thank you. So that takes us now to item number 8, the Pacific Surfliner on-time performance analysis for the third quarter of federal fiscal year 2020-2021. And this item will be presented to the TAC by Ms. Rosa Guillen-Sanchez.
Good afternoon. I'm Rosa Guillen-Sanchez, Senior Transportation Analyst under LOSSAN Planning and Analysis. And as James mentioned, I'm here to present to you the Pacific Surfliner on-time performance analysis for quarter 3 of federal fiscal year 21, covering the months of April, May, and June 2021. Next slide, please. And next slide. Slide 2 is a map of the 351-mile Pacific Surfliner route, with segments color-coded by the 4 different agencies or host railroads who operate along the route. I'm showing this map simply to provide a visualization of where the 4 different host railroad territories are located along the corridor. The map shows Union Pacific Territory highlighted in green at the northernmost end of the route, starting in San Luis Obispo County. Mid-route, you see the Southern California Regional Rail Authority territory highlighted in purple. A segment in between is operated by the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad, or BNSF, highlighted in blue, and at the southernmost end of the route, in San Diego County, North County Transit District, or NCTD territory, is highlighted in red. Next slide, please. Moving on to slide 3, this chart shows endpoint on-time performance of trains, a metric that is part of the uniform performance standards that we are required to report to the state. The 90% endpoint OTP goal shown in red is set by CalSTA and represents the percentage of trains arriving to their final station within 15 minutes of their scheduled arrival time. We've been able to keep train endpoint OTP at or above 80% from January 2020 through June 2021, which has not always been above the 90% goal, but indeed a great improvement compared to the lower performance trends we were suffering back in 2019, as shown on the left-hand side of the chart. As I highlighted during our last meeting, beyond the COVID-19 service reduction, OTP has improved thanks to ongoing capital improvements, the OTP incentive program we have with NCTD, as well as train retiming efforts. And now focusing on the values for federal fiscal year 21, quarter 3, endpoint OTP reached nearly 90% in April, almost 88% in May, and nearly 85% in June 2021. The average for the quarter was 87.4%. This is strong OTP, especially considering that all throughout federal fiscal year 21, including quarter 3, there were lots of track condition issues, including Del Mar Bluffs, and construction of ongoing capital improvement projects that led to many temporary delays. As a reminder of what I also noted during our last meeting, Union Pacific Railroad completed several rail and tie replacement projects in February and May 2021. And there was also construction for the Narland Bridge replacement project, which was completed on August 23rd. Also, in federal fiscal year 21, quarter 3, there were more trains operating along the LOSSAN rail corridor compared to other periods since the COVID-19 service reduction began in March 2020. Multiple operators began COVID-19 service recoveries between May and June 2021. For example, on May 24th, Amtrak restored daily long distance service on the Coast Starlight, operating between LA and Seattle. Coaster and San Diego County returned to full service on the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. On the same day, Metrolink launched a new Saturday service on its Ventura County line. Then on June 28th, we increased Pacific Surfliner service from 12 daily one-way trips to 18 daily one-way trips. In federal fiscal year 21 quarter 3, there were also significant increases in passenger-related delays, which are expected with more service and higher passenger counts. I'll provide details about these delays in an upcoming slide. Next slide, please. Sorry, I'm trying to get my page at the same level. So slide 4 shows a table with endpoint OTP by train. As the 3-month average column shows on the right-hand side, most trains averaged near or above 80% OTP from April to June 2021, except for 2 trains. Train 569 was one of those 2 trains, but please note that its low OTP score is only based on operating for 3 days in June, starting with the implementation of the June 28th service change. Train 785 was the only other train with average OTP under 80% for the quarter. So I'll talk about it in detail. It's a train that travels quite some distance, about 240 miles from San Diego to Goleta, as noted on the table. It had the lowest OTP average for quarter 3, largely due to the following 3 reasons: locomotive failures, crew and system delays, and initial terminal delays. Many initial terminal delays were caused by waiting for late train 774, which was often delayed due to signal issues in UP territory. These and other delay types inevitably cascaded into interferences with both commuter trains and our own Pacific Surfliner trains, and unfortunately resulted in the poor OTP average for train 785. Of course, we always need to keep in mind that one or a couple of low-performing trains can easily cascade delay system-wide, unfortunately resulting in lower system-wide on-time performance. Next slide, please. Slide 5 shows average monthly customer on-time performance, which is a bit different from the train endpoint OTP I talked about in the previous 2 slides, and represents the percentage of customers arriving to their trip destination within 15 minutes of their scheduled arrival time. We do not report this OTP standard to the state, but show it here as information. The 75% goal shown in red is set by Amtrak, and as you can see, in federal fiscal year 21 quarter 3, customer OTP continued to perform well above the 75% goal, reaching 92.1% in April, 87.4% in May, and 82.9% in June 2021. Next slide, please. On slide 6, the main chart with the 3 colors shows minutes of delay by responsible party per 10,000 train miles. The measure is normalized by the number of miles traveled by each train and multiplied by 10,000 so that we can compare periods with different levels of Pacific Surfliner service, such as April to June 2020 versus April to June 2021. As you may recall, we usually categorize delays into one of 3 responsibility groups: host, shown in yellow, Amtrak, shown in blue, and third party, shown in green. A clear fact shown by the main chart is that host responsible delay types, shown in yellow, continue to be the largest category of delay types for the entire Pacific Surfliner route, followed by Amtrak-related delays, then third party. As usual, please note that we've already excluded unused recovery time, or NOD, from third-party delays, since NOD is not actually a delay and just represents the train sitting or waiting to avoid running ahead of schedule. The small chart on the right shows the minutes of NOD we've excluded from the third-party category in the main chart. Now, focusing on comparing the delay rates between federal fiscal year 21 quarter 3 versus quarter 3 of the previous federal fiscal year, the rate of host responsible delays increased by 3%. The rate of Amtrak responsible delays increased by 26%, and the rate of third-party delays increased by 34%. Overall, in federal fiscal year 21 quarter 3, there were 1,443 minutes of delay per 10,000 train miles, representing a 12% increase in the overall delay rate compared to Q3 of the previous federal fiscal year. Please note that in both periods we are comparing, a COVID-19 service reduction had already been implemented. In fact, the earlier Q3 period in 2020 had a more severe service reduction compared to the recent Q3 period of April to June 2021. Next slide, please. Slide 7 basically shows a breakdown of the previous slide. The colored bars represent minutes of delay from April to June 2021, and the gray bars represent minutes of delay for Q3 of the previous federal fiscal year. The yellow bars show what specific delay types fall under the host responsibility category, such as signal delays and commuter train interferences, for example. The blue bar shows specific delay types that fall under the Amtrak responsibility category, such as crew and system delays and passenger-related delays. And the green bars show specific delay types that fall under the third-party category, such as police and trespasser-related delays. You can see that signal delays, shown by the first yellow bar on the graph, were the #1 delay type in federal fiscal year 21 Q3. While signal issues unfortunately increased in UP territory, some good news is that signal issues drastically decreased within NCTD territory in San Diego County. Moreover, under the Amtrak responsibility category shown in blue, there was a notable 121% increase in passenger-related delays, which can occur for many reasons, including high passenger counts, when a train is required to stop at a station longer than usual, when there are issues with checked baggage, and wheelchair lift delays are also examples of passenger delays. Finally, the bars in green show the specific delay types that are categorized under third party. In federal fiscal year 21 Q3, there was a significant increase in police-related delays compared to Q3 of the previous federal fiscal year. Police were sometimes involved to remove unruly passengers, fare evaders, or to block the railroad due to fire, a vehicle, or trespassers on the tracks. Again, since the host responsible delay types shown in yellow account for the largest share of delays along the Pacific Surfliner route, 59% for Q3 as shown on the pie chart. In the next slide, I'll provide details about where these delay types were generally occurring. Slide 8 shows two charts that show only host responsible delays per 10,000 train miles by host railroad. So these charts are a breakdown of what was shown only in yellow in the previous two slides. Focusing on the top chart, you can see that overall in federal fiscal year 21 Q3, the host responsible delay rate increased by 18% within UP territory, by 6% in SERA territory, by 90% in BNSF territory, and fortunately decreased within NCTD territory by 25%. Looking directly down at the bottom chart, you can clearly see what the large delay contributors were within each host territory. For example, signal-related delays dominated in UP territory and also led to a significant amount of passenger train interferences. In SERA territory, there was a lot of commuter and passenger train interferences. In BNSF territory, there were many delays related to freight trains, as well as signal and slow order delays. The #1 delay type in NCTD territory was commuter train interferences, which frequently occur with coaster service and sometimes with Metrolink service operating within San Diego County. It's not shown on these charts, but I do want to highlight that in my last presentation for Q2, I showed you that the host responsible delay rate in UP territory was about 2,000 minutes of delay per 10,000 train miles. This time, for Q3, it's improved drastically and slashed to about half, to about 1,000 minutes of delay per 10,000 train miles, as shown in the top chart for UP territory. Next slide, please. Slide 9 shows where there were peaks of delay minutes around stations or specific locations along the Pacific Surfliner route, from UP territory shown in green to San Diego territory shown in red. Please note that this slide is different from all the previous slides since it shows total minutes of delay by location instead of the rate of minutes of delay per 10,000 train miles. I mentioned this to clarify again that the results of this slide will not add up exactly to the results of the previous slides. Now, the bars in colors represent minutes of delay around the station for federal fiscal year 21, quarter 3, and the gray bars show the same for quarter 3 of the previous federal fiscal year. Delays between stations were allocated to the starting station of the delay. For example, whether a train was traveling northbound from Irvine to Santa Ana or southbound from Irvine to San Juan Capistrano. The delay in both of these examples would be allocated to Irvine, since that was the starting location of the delay. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thanks. In summary, endpoint OTP. Oh, no, sorry. Not the question slide. In summary, endpoint OTP did not achieve the 90% goal set by CalSTA, but got very close with the federal fiscal year 21 quarter 3 average of 87.4%. Again, this covers the month of April to June 2021. Most delay types continue to fall under the host responsibility category, followed by Amtrak, then third party. Delay rates increased for all 3 responsibility groups, resulting in an overall 12% increase in the federal fiscal year 21 quarter 3 delay rate compared to quarter 3 of the previous federal fiscal year. As I've explained, we can largely attribute the increased delay rate to more trains operating along the corridor, more passengers, as well as some locomotive engine failures, track conditions, and ongoing construction along the Pacific Surfliner route. We do expect to see a decrease in signal-related delays as capital improvement projects are completed along the corridor, and currently there are no chronic engine failure issues. So we should see a decrease in both of these delay types in future period presentations. This concludes my presentation for today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rosa. Does any member of the TAC have any questions or comments on this item? I see Danny's hand up.
Yeah, Rosa, thanks for the presentation. Very informative. Just my question, it just kind of perked my interest just on what you just said on, there were some locomotive failures, with the new Siemens locomotives that have replaced all the old locomotives on the service. I know there was some period of time of breaking those in and getting used to them, but have we found that that those locomotives have been more reliable than the old ones that were replaced?
Danny, I'll take that one. This is James Campbell, Manager of Operations and Capital Programs for LOSSAN. Yes, overall they have been more reliable, but with any vehicle that still will continue to have issues on occasion. Many of these issues that have been occurring have been related to the PTC system and a lot of the technology that's integrated into the locomotives at this point, where it'll work as intended, but sometimes things will happen that were not expected. So you'll have delays in the middle of the corridor there associated with PTC. So that's by far a lot of them that were related to that. So it's not so much the mechanical element of it, more the technological element of it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Michelle, do we have any requests from the public on this item?
To comment in real time, select raise hand to speak. If you are calling by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. No comments, James.
All right, thank you. So that moves us to item number 9, upcoming agenda items. This is an overview of upcoming agenda items for the November 15th, 2021 LOSSAN Agency Board of Directors meeting. The agenda includes presentations on the technical topics presented to this committee today, as well as legislative updates, budget and grant status updates for the fourth quarter, and a new cooperative agreement with NCTD for the on-time performance incentive program, since the current agreement expires soon. Two items presented in this agenda are being deferred to a later board meeting due simply to timing reasons, and will not be included on the final board agenda for November. These include the release of the RFP for the PS&E phase of the Central Coast Layover Facility and a cooperative agreement with OCTA on the emergency track stabilization efforts that occurred in San Clemente in late September. Does anyone have any questions regarding the draft board agenda? Okay, Michelle, do we have any comments from the public on this item?
To comment in real time, select raise hand to speak. If you are calling by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. No comments, James.
All right, thank you. Now that takes us to item number 10, LOSSAN Rail Corridor Agency update. Excuse me, I have some water here. So there are a few things I'd like to mention as part of this update. First, on Monday, October 25th, has been mentioned in this meeting previously, the LOSSAN agency, in partnership with Amtrak and all of our host railroads, implemented for the Pacific Surfliner the initial step for a corridor-wide pulsed schedule, starting with repeatable departure times out of Los Angeles and San Diego. The decision to implement the pulse schedule now was to lay the foundation to more easily add service in the future in pre-designated slots as we coordinate with Metrolink and Coaster services in the restoration of our services and ultimately in again growing the services. It's important to also note that the schedule north of Los Angeles will continue to be refined as the infrastructure projects occurring on the Union Pacific are completed and we are able to take advantage of the benefits afforded by these improvements. While it's too early to report back on any improvement to the service performance as a result of these schedule adjustments, we will highlight any changes to this committee in future on-time performance updates. Second, tomorrow, I wanted to announce to everyone that we will be releasing the draft environmental impact report of the Central Coast Layover Facility for the 45-day public review and comment period. The public meeting is currently being coordinated with the City of San Luis Obispo and is tentatively being set for December 8th to align with the city's Planning Commission meeting. The draft EIR will be posted online tomorrow at lossan.org under the Central Coast Layover Facility project page, and hard copies will be provided to both the SLOCOG offices and OCTA offices for people to come in and review at their leisure. And last, I'd like to remind everyone here that per the LOSSAN agency bylaws, every 2 years, the TAC positions are up for consideration by your agencies. The LOSSAN Managing Director will be providing notification to the board of this at the November 15th meeting, and letters will be sent to your CEOs or executive directors requesting the agency formally designate a primary representative and alternate if desired to this TAC for a 2-year period. An updated and formal TAC roster will then be submitted to the board of directors for approval for the 2022 to 2023 period. This concludes my updates. Before I ask any questions, does any other LOSSAN agency staff have updates they'd like to present? Yes, Roger.
One thing I was just going to mention, we know we had talked previously about the strategic plan as part of the update, and we had mentioned that we would have a more robust discussion in November. I just wanted to update everyone on that. Based on the board's input, we'll be having a full workshop in January instead of something that we had tacked on to a meeting. So we'll be having a full workshop in January that will be dedicated specifically to the strategic plan. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was updated on that.
Thank you, Roger. All right. Any other members have updates there? Staff members? Okay.
James, this is Scott. I had my hand up. Not maybe.
Yeah,
you
no, I
couldn't
was
see
just
it.
gonna say, so
Okay.
for questions here.
Just a question on the TAC member reps. Those, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't those changeable at any time by a member agency?
They can be, but per the bylaws, on a regular basis, they need to at least be updated every 2 years.
Okay, and that's what's going on this month. And what's the process for just updating out of cycle? Is it just an email from the ED to Donna?
Usually it's a formal letter that can just be emailed. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Jay?
Yes, I had a quick question going back to your first point, James. You were talking about the schedule change from the 25th. Can you remind us, I'm a little confused as far as adding service. I thought we added service to the north, or we extended service.
We did, and I apologize for not mentioning that as part of it. As part of that October 25th change, we did restore the second round trip between San Diego and San Luis Obispo as well.
Okay, was that an existing train that got extended, or is it a brand new train altogether?
A little bit of both. It was we restored an older train, that train 761, that was the original 4 a.m. out of San Diego to San Luis Obispo for midday arrival. Then we extended what used to be numbered 796, but was renumbered 794 to again originate in San Luis Obispo as it did pre-COVID. And then we restored also an older train of 784, which is now a 1:39 p.m. train out of Goleta. So it was one round trip equivalent between San Diego and San Luis Obispo.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Michelle, do we have any requests from the public on this item?
To comment in real time, select raise hand to speak. If you are calling by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. No comments, James.
Thank you, Michelle. So this takes us to item number 11, TAC members' reports. So at this time, I'd like to open the floor to any TAC member to offer any of their own reports. Yes, Megan, OCTA.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Megan Taylor, OCTA. I would assume that Metrolink would announce this, but I did want to mention that on December 6th, Metrolink is doing another service restoration. And the impacts of the Orange County line, we're adding a reverse peak round trip on the Orange County line and a reverse peak round trip on the 91 Paris Valley line. Those are just the lines that impact Orange County. So maybe I'll leave it up to Jay or Roderick to talk about the other restoration, but they're re-implementing 22 trips December 6th. So we're excited about that. That's all.
Great, thank you. Yes, it is exciting to restore more train service here. Do we have any? Okay, Roderick, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, just to reinforce what I know Megan said, essentially what I was going to say.
You're very soft, Roderick. I don't know if anyone else, but it's hard to hear.
Okay, let me try it. Is this better?
A little bit, yes.
Okay. Essentially, just to build off what Megan was saying, in terms of the recent schedule change, we do have that code share with Ventura County. We are kind of very hard. We're going to continue to monitor performance on that additional round trip. It is no blackout dates throughout the year. And so that's a feature that we think is important for expansion of code share moving forward. We are expanding, as Megan said, on December 6th to about 80% of our service, where our service used to be. And are looking to restore service during fiscal year 23 as we develop our budget. So that's We are also working on initiatives to start selling tickets to the Ventura downtown station so that the code share can start to apply to Ventura downtown as well to the gambling system. We are also exploring ways to have our weekend service end at Ventura downtown rather than Ventura East. So looking for more ways of integrating, and I think we're very glad to hear the comments we heard about rail to rail earlier that will give us ideas and reinforce some direction that we're seeing going.
James, you're muted.
Of course I am. Okay, Brent with MTS. Sorry about that.
Hey, everybody. We're excited to open up our Mid-Coast Blue Line light rail extension November 21st. That's 2-3 Sundays from now, I guess. So everyone knows we're going to have a opening celebration on that day. It's going to be free to ride that day, so all of you are welcome, obviously. The direct impacts to LOSSAN is the blue line that we run now. It goes from San Ysidro to America Plaza, which is just across the street from Santa Fe Depot in downtown. It's going to be extended up through Santa Fe Depot, and then the Old Town station, and then up from Old Town to UC San Diego and UTC. So what that's going to mean is we're going to have twice as much trolley service going through both Santa Fe Depot and Old Town. So even better connections from the Surfliner and Coaster and such. So again, that's November 21st, and it's a 11-mile extension with 9 new stations. So that's it from us.
Thank you, Brent. Danny, Sandag?
Yes, just real quickly. Yeah, I think at Sandag, we're also equally excited about the Mid-Coast Trolley. And then the other big efforts here at Sandag in the next few months is our regional plan, which is scheduled to go to our board for hopefully adoption in December. And it's the Sandag's regional plan this time is just fundamentally visionary and more advanced than we've ever done in the past. And there's a lot of good stuff in there for the LOSSAN corridor. If you're interested to check it out, it's the website's sdforward.com. That's it for me.
Thank you. And I see, Ryan, you should be able to speak now if you want to give your update from Caltrans.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
You can.
Okay. Yeah, I just real brief. Thanks, James. Hi, everyone. We are getting ready to release our admin draft State Rail Plan 2022. We're just finishing that up, and that should be submitted out to the public early next month. I'm going to say December 1st. So I just want to give everybody a heads up on that. And I appreciate everybody's input during the service planning process and getting your input in that. And I think it'll be an exciting plan and vision. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Are there any other TAC members that wish to provide updates? Okay. Michelle, do we have any requests from the public on this item?
Sorry, James, I was on mute as well. To comment in real time, select raise hand to speak. If you're calling by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. No comments, James.
All right, thank you. Well, that brings us to item number 12, an adjournment. So this concludes today's TAC meeting. I'd like to thank everyone for your participation. The next regular meeting of the committee is tentatively scheduled to be held at 1 p.m. on Thursday, January 6th, 2022, pending confirmation by the Board of Directors on the 2022 calendar. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you,
everyone.
James. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's up? Yeah. You don't have a previous.
Hey, Brent, you're still on.
Oh, sorry. Working.